Good morning, it's Annie with Manor Farms Homestead. So we have not done a video in quite a while. It's been about 2 months. I started back a full-time job Monday through Friday, and I've been working a lot of telemed shifts from home on the weekends. So I've worked almost non-stop for about 2 months. I actually have a weekend off, and I have a lot of peppers that have just turned red and orange that we've decided to make some pepper jelly out of. My garden in general has been very neglected. We've been very dry up until the last couple of days, so a lot of stuff has died back, and I just haven't had the time to keep it up like I would like to, so a lot of stuff is just sat out there and gone to seed. All of my bean plants, I picked a couple of meals out of, but they just sat out there and went to seed, which is not a bad thing. They put nitrogen back in the soil when they're left like that, so that's not entirely a loss. So closing down the summer garden is going to be our peppers. We have a mixture of datil, jalapenos, and non-hot habaneros, or very mild habaneros. They're called Where's the Heat habaneros. So that should kind of tame our pepper sauce down a little bit by having some of these in there. Besides these, everything else in there is hot. I've got half-quart jars here. All I've done with these, took them out of the box and I've washed them. Now we're going to actually sterilize these in the oven, which is how I like to do sterilization on all of my jars. So they're clean right now, but they need to be sterilized. So these are going to go into an oven at 225 for 10 minutes to sterilize it. And we may have more than what we need, not sure. We'll just kind of take it as it goes, but this is a full tray that we'll get into our oven to sterilize. Now coming on around, I want to show you my full setup. I'm set up here to cut up all of my peppers. I will use gloves because these are hot peppers and I don't want my hands burning. I have a big pot that we'll be using to put them in, and we'll be combining all of our ingredients in this. And I'll take you through the steps of that as we move forward. Over here at the stove, I have my water bath canner set up. I'll start gently heating this up once we get closer to time for using this. All of our lids that we're going to use for canning are in a little water bath. We'll get this up to a gentle boil. Just hold them there, not even a boil, like a simmer. We'll hold them there for about 10 minutes and they'll be sterilized and ready to go on our jars. This is a key player in canning. It's a little magnet where you can pull a single lid out of your water bath as you need it. Works very well. Over here I have some of my additional ingredients that will be going into our pepper jelly. I do have some vinegar with a paper towel here. This will be used to wipe our lids. In addition to our peppers, the other ingredients for this recipe are going to be a little bit of lemon juice, just for the pectin that's in it to help it set up, apple cider vinegar, a small amount of white vinegar, sugar, and a little bit of salt. We're also going to be using pectin. I have 2 boxes of the powdered pectin, so we may make one batch with this, and then I have 1 box of the liquid pectin, so we'll probably make 1 batch with this if we have enough peppers, and we'll go from there. So that's our setup right now, and we'll bring you back as I chop up peppers and get things moving with the recipe. So I've got Pierce here deveining and de-seeding all of our peppers. I've opted to use my Ninja just to do a rough to fine chop on all of our peppers. And since we're going to do 2 batches, I actually swapped out my big pot for one that's smaller that I think will be more manageable if we're doing this in 2 batches. think this is going to be pretty spicy. I know we have our no heat habaneros that we're adding, but I'm thinking that I'm going to go grab some of those yellow bell peppers out there to add a few of those just to tone it down a bit, because we've got a lot of really hot peppers in here. These red jalapenos are going to be very spicy, and these datilles I know are very spicy. The thing I like about the datilles is that they have almost a fruity pepper flavor. They're great mixed in with any kind of pepper blends.
Which ones are the datilles?
These orange ones. They start out green. I try to wait to harvest them until they're this color, and they have just a fantastic flavor. They're kind of a thin walled pepper, but great for drying, just like this. And then you can add them to soups and stews. They add a really tremendous flavor to anything you're cooking. So, one of my favorite peppers to mix into any kind of pepper blend. They are an heirloom, so you can save seeds from them. And these are actually from seeds that I saved from last year. The huge jalapenos that I have are actually hybrid jalapenos, so I can't save the seeds from those. So we're just going through and deveining, deseeding. I'm not being super careful about deveining because that's where a lot of your heat is, and I do want to keep a lot of heat in this pepper jelly. But I am getting the seeds out just because that's really not a...
You don't want too spicy.
Well, not that it's too spicy. That's just not something that you want to eat in your pepper jelly, seeds. So we are getting all the seeds out. There might be a few that make it through. So our blender is almost full. And each of my little batches of peppers is going to be based on 5 cups of peppers that have been chopped. So to this, I'm actually going to go grab a couple of yellow bell peppers and see if we can squish those down in there. So don't put any more hot peppers in here. And one of the things that we also have, this is actually a hot banana pepper. Very flavorful, very hot. So I'm gonna go grab a couple of yellow bell peppers to put down in here. All right, so we're back with a little 2-gallon bucket full of yellow, mainly yellow bell peppers. I did end up with a few green ones because I broke a branch, so I wasn't gonna waste those. So I do have a few green bell peppers that we'll use just in the mix. Now I like super spicy stuff, but not everyone will eat this if it's unbearably hot. So this should tone it down a little bit so that everybody in the household will enjoy it. That's about all we're gonna get in here. So we're gonna go ahead and get that blended. This bowl that I have here filled to the top holds 5 cups, and that's kind of the basis for what we're using for our recipe. All right, so we got these chopped up in our Ninja. The Ninja really works like a food processor. You could certainly use a food processor for this. It doesn't puree it, so it just gives you a fine chop on it. Or you could do a rough chop, just depending on how long you blend it. This smells really strong. Pretty hot. So I'm glad we added those bell peppers to tone it down a bit. Now, as you notice, we are both wearing gloves for this. You would definitely not want to do this without gloves. Your hands would be on fire. All right, so not quite 5 cups there. We'll just keep filling our Then you up and do this again. Go ahead and put these bell peppers that I have cut up over here down in the bottom. And then this is just a tedious process of getting all the peppers diced up. I do have my hot water bath canner in the background, just on real low, getting up to temperature. You don't want it boiling, but you do want it warm, almost at a boil, when you get ready to drop your jars in there and can them. Now, pepper jelly is a high acid product, so it only has to be water bath canned for 5 minutes. So just a real short course with that to make it shelf stable. Definitely speeds things along to have help in the kitchen. Now these no heat habaneros have a very strong pepper flavor, really good pepper flavor. They're just absent of heat. And the banana peppers, a lot of those I lost due to just it being dry and me not being out there to water them over the last couple of minutes. So I only had a few of those left, but they're very spicy, very flavorful. And they were some that I saved from seeds. They're heirlooms. They start out this color, then they'll turn, I don't know if I have any orange ones in here. Kind of an orange and then a dark red. The only reason I have these light yellow ones in here is because I broke a branch and I didn't want to waste the peppers on it. So got a few of the immature ones in here. They're still spicy. And we'll just continue this. Our jars have already been sterilized. We did 225 for 10 minutes in the oven. And after that, I just turned the oven off, so they're just sitting in the oven until we need them. So this is just the mundane part. We will bring you back when we're getting ready to actually start mixing up our recipe and getting this stuff into the pot with the vinegar, sugar, salt, and pectin. All right, so this batch didn't smell quite as hot. We had more bell pepper in it. So we're gonna go ahead and fill this bowl up to our 5-cup line. That's pretty much it. I think we can get everything out of this blender in there. We didn't fill this one quite as full. All right, so this is our 5 cups of peppers. So we want a total of 10 cups for our first batch. So we're gonna do a whole nother one of these. All right, this is our 10 cups of diced peppers. We've got a lot of hot peppers in here and maybe about a quarter of mild peppers in here. And we're gonna move on and start adding our additional ingredients. All right, so to our peppers, we're gonna add sugar, salt, vinegar, lemon juice. So let's get started. So this is a 10-cup batch of peppers. We're gonna put 2 teaspoons of salt. A lot of the pepper jelly recipes that I found did not call for salt, but I really feel like these need salt to kind of cut that sugar and vinegar taste to give it more of a tangy flavor. So we've got 2 teaspoons of just flaky sea salt. We're gonna use, the recipe called for 5 cups of sugar. I'm going to go with 4 and see how it tastes. If I feel like it needs more, I will add another cup. So that's our sugar and salt. Now we've got our vinegar and lime juice. So we're gonna use a 1/2 cup, not lime juice, lemon juice. You can use lime juice if you want to. So we're gonna use a 1/2 cup of lemon juice. And this helps with the gelling process because lemon juice is naturally high in pectin. I'll set this down on a flat surface so I make sure I got the 4 ounces, yes. And then we need a 1/2 cup of white vinegar. Good. And 1 cup of apple cider vinegar. Now I'm second guessing myself on the recipe, and I think those may have been the volumes for 5 cups. So we may need to double that. Let me double check. All right, after a quick look at my recipe, the salt is correct for this batch. The sugar needs to be doubled, and the vinegar and the lemon juice need to be doubled. So we're gonna do another cup of our apple cider vinegar. I wrote this down as a 5 cup pepper recipe and then decided to double it. So that's why I'm mixed up on my amounts. Another 1/2 cup of lemon juice. And 1/2 cup of white vinegar. And that looks more right. So let's do 4 more cups of the sugar. Again, I go back to the original recipe did call for 5 cups per 5 cups of peppers. I've dropped it down 1 cup just because I feel like the 5 cups seems a little excessive, especially when we're using Sure-Jell. So we don't necessarily need the huge amounts of sugar to get it to gel. Now we're gonna get this over to the stove. All right, so we got it over on the stove. I've got it on medium heat right now. I'm just gonna get it mixed together. I do wanna taste test this once I get it all mixed up. Now this first batch, we are using our liquid pectin in. And the recipe called for the original 5 cups of peppers with 1 3-ounce packet of liquid pectin. So we have 2 of these since we're using 10 cups of peppers. We're just gonna get this up to a boil. It needs to boil for 10 minutes. Then we put our pectin in, we boil for another 1 minute. And then our jars will go into our water bath canner at a rapid full boil for 5 minutes. All right, we're gonna taste test this. All right, so Pierce and I are both gonna taste test this. We both like spicy food, so There you go.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Tastes like pepper jelly.
Mm-hmm.
It's very spicy.
Just needs thickened up now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what
The Sure Gel
Sure Gel
will turn it into jelly. How do you think it would be with a little bit more salt?
Fine. I think it's really good right now though.
You do?
Mm.
I like salt, so we're gonna add 1 more teaspoon of salt. Again, most of the recipes that I found for pepper jelly did not call for any salt at all. But I really like mine to be sweet and tangy. And I feel like the salt kind of cuts that sugar and vinegar and balances it out. So just based on the initial taste test, I think the 1 more teaspoon of salt may make it perfect. Did you clean your spoon?
Yeah, I cleaned it.
And let's get this all dissolved in, because that's sea salt.
Start to simmer.
No, it's not quite to a simmer. We want to bring it to a rapid boil and boil it for 10 minutes. I still feel some gritty salt on the bottom. Takes a little bit longer for that sea salt, because it's not a fine grind for it to melt and get fully incorporated into it. All right, so go ahead and taste it. I'm gonna wash my spoon so I can get another taste. Did it make any difference? More balanced?
Really good.
All right, so let's do this again. I think that's perfect. That is exactly what we're going for.
Tastes just like pepper jelly, just
Okay.
spicier.
As these cook down, I believe some of the heat will cook out of them. But this is perfect. And yes, we did not need any more sugar than what we put in this. So let's get this to a boil. 10 minutes at a boil, then we're adding our pectin, and I will bring you back when we add our pectin. So we have this at a rolling boil. We've got about 3 more minutes of this before we add our pectin. All right, this has been going for 10 minutes, so we're gonna get our pectin added. So this needs to go 1 minute longer with the pectin in it. So we need to get this back up to a boil. The pectin cooled it down a little bit. Increase our heat. All right, it's now back up to a rolling boil, so we will time it for 1 minute. And as you can see, I've got my sterilized warm jars out here ready to start filling. All right, that's our 1 minute. We'll start getting these. Probably need to move this off of the heat because it's gonna come to a rolling boil and we don't want that. fill in our jars. You'll leave about a ½ inch of head space. And then this is our vinegar cloth that we're going to use to wipe our lids down. Got hot sterilized lids. And then this is going to go into our warm water bath canner. If you have a lot of foam on the top of this, you can skim it. We really don't have a lot, so that's good. When you're putting hot liquid into your jars, make sure that they're on a towel if you've got cooler countertops. Otherwise your jars can break. These jars are still warm. I just took them out of the oven prior to us doing this. Now right now this is pretty liquidy, but it is supposed to set up as it cools. So we'll hope it does what it's supposed to do. I've not used this recipe. Honestly, I've never made pepper jelly, so this is my first time of trying to use the last of my peppers for the season as pepper jelly. According to the online recipe, it's supposed to be foolproof, so we will see. All right, we're on to our second batch of pepper jelly. I did have to go pick some green peppers because we ran out of our hot reds, but these are hot green jalapenos that we're mixing with our batch of yellow, orange, and red hot peppers. So this will be more of a confetti looking pepper jelly. And again, we have a mixture of hot and not hot peppers. So this recipe is going to be using powdered pectin. So it's a little bit different than the first one. It says to get these on the stove on high heat, and then you start adding your vinegar, lemon juice, and pectin, and then we'll pull it off the heat after it comes to a boil, add our sugar, put it back on the heat, and boil it some more. So let's get started. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the heat turned up on our peppers. We're gonna go ahead and get our vinegar measured out. This recipe calls for 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. Again, this recipe did not call for salt, but we are adding salt for flavor. So that's pretty similar to the first recipe. And then we're going to add a half a cup of lemon juice. So just a tiny bit less liquid than the original recipe that we used with the liquid pectin. I'm very hopeful that my first recipe sets up. Looks a little bit liquidy to me right now. We're going to do our 3 teaspoons of salt like we did in our other batch. That seemed to be the magic number on Taste Profile. And again, this is a coarse sea salt. No iodine. And we need to go ahead and add our Sure-Jell. This is the powdered pectin. We used the liquid pectin last time. So we're kind of comparing these 2 recipes with different types of pectin. I do want to point out that since I used a lot of my jars last time, I've sterilized some more lids back here. And I do have more jars in the oven sterilizer. And these are 1.75 ounce packets of Sure-Jell. We're just going to get this all stirred together. Now this calls for adding the sugar after this has come to a full boil, which is different than our last recipe. And as you can see, all the green, orange, and red in here kind of make this more of a confetti looking pepper jelly.
Smells good.
Okay, so we've got our peppers and pectin and vinegar coming to a boil. At this point, we're going to go ahead and add our sugar. I was reading on the directions on the pectin, which recommended not reducing the sugar or you may have trouble with it setting up. So I would probably go with the full 5 cups in this recipe and see if that changes things, because it looks like my other jars are not setting up really that well. So for this recipe, we're using the 5 cups of sugar to 5 cups of the peppers. So it's 2 additional cups of sugar compared to the last vat that we did. And hopefully this will set up better than the last. Alright, so this needs to come back to a boil and boil for a minute. Alright, so we're just getting this back up to a boil. Now that we've added our sugar to this, it needs to boil for a minute. So it's got to come back up to a boil at this point. As you can see, this is a different, looks different than our last because it has the green peppers in it as well. And like I said, from before I had reduced the sugar in the previous recipes, and it looks like those jars may not be setting up like they should. And because I'm a perfectionist, I may empty all those jars back in here, add the extra sugar, recan them, and see if they'll set up. We'll see. We'll see how this batch does. I'm definitely not a pro at working with Sure-Jell. So, and I'm bad about following recipes, so that's my fault for thinking I could reduce the sugar and still get the same setup. All right, we're now at a rolling boil, so we're going to time it for a minute. So I do have all my new sterilized jars. I'm gonna pull this off the heat for the most part and start filling our little jars. I actually need to take this lid off my canner so I can set them over there. Each time you dip, make sure you stir all of your pepper jelly so that the peppers don't float with all of your liquid at the bottom. Now these are actually the same size jars, just a different shape. They're half pints. We're still using our vinegar cloth to wipe our lids. I've sterilized additional lids to go with these jars, and these jars have been in the oven sterilizing as well. These are a wider base jar, so I may not be able to fit quite as many in my canner at one time. Based on the size of my ladle, I can usually get about 1.5 ladles in there. I mean 2.5 ladles into each of these half pint jars. And that's it. We're just going to keep jarring these up and getting them into our canner. Now once our canner's full, these will go for 5 minutes at a rapid boil. My particular water bath canner actually has a little gauge that tells me when I'm at the ideal temperature based on my altitude. And when it hits that on the thermometer, that's when I start timing them for the 5 minutes. So very hopeful that these will set up, unlike the last ones. All right, well, it's actually been about a week since I initially started the video on my pepper jelly. I got kind of disappointed there at the end where it turned more into a sauce, a syrupy sauce than an actual jelly. I was trying to cut back on the sugar in the first batch, so I thought that that was why my first batch didn't set up and gel like it was supposed to. So the second batch, I did put the full amount of sugar. It still didn't set up, so I wanted to show you what we've got here. Okay, so this is the second batch that I made, and I used the full amount of sugar that the recipe called for. But as you can see, it's not gelled. It's thick, it's syrupy. If you put it in the refrigerator, it will almost turn into a jam consistency. The taste is delicious. It's excellent over cream cheese and crackers. And in fact, this was a whole pint that I made, and that's how much is left after 1 week of the kids hitting it pretty hard. So very, very good. Just did not set up like I would expect Sure-Jell to do. Now, I've not worked with Sure-Jell a lot in my lifetime, so actually, I haven't really worked with Sure-Jell at all in my lifetime. So any pointers that y'all want to give on what I'm doing wrong, I looked back at the box of Sure-Jell, the packet of the liquid Sure-Jell, and my recipe, and kind of compared amounts of liquid, vegetables, all of that I had in there, and based on both the recipe I used and the directions on the box, it looked like it should have set up like a gel. So I'm not sure what happened there that kept it from setting up. I don't know if cook time should be longer, but according to the directions, it's a minute of boiling after you add the Sure-Jell. So again, not sure what happened. What I did do, I took my original batch where I used less sugar because I was afraid that the less sugar had caused it not to gel. That was disproven in my second batch. But I did, after my second batch didn't gel either, I went back with my first batch and put it all back into my pan. Brought it back up to a boil, added the additional sugar that I had initially left out, plus 1 additional package of Sure-Jell. But it didn't set up either. This is just like pepper sauce. Again, it's delicious. We're definitely gonna eat it. I'm not gonna go back to the drawing board and add more pectin. I'm thinking that probably I need to double the pectin that's typically called for in a recipe. Or again, if you guys have any pointers on what I'm doing wrong with actually using the Sure-Jell, feel free to leave comments. But that was the outcome of our sauce. The first batch, bright red, because this was most of my really, really hot peppers. The second batch, because we did use some green peppers, is more of a orangey, greenish kind of color. Both taste good. This is a milder sauce than the original, but both of them are pretty toned down with the amount of sugar that was put in there. So very tasty. We'll definitely eat them. We'll just call it pepper sauce instead of pepper jelly. So that's it on today's lesson on making pepper jelly. Hopefully next time it really will be pepper jelly. I'll probably experiment a little bit next time and add additional pectin and see if it will set up as a gel. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and maybe can contribute something to the outcome of pepper jelly out of this video.